Greetings folks and welcome to the Electromaker show. This is your midweek roundup of all things maker and embedded and lovely. And this week we will be taking a look at a few wonderful projects. And we didn't have time yet to go over all of our winners from Electromaker of the Month in September, and we're going to right that wrong today. We're also going to include a extra bonus project that caught my eye, which is just an absurd and wonderful over-engineered fix for a tiny broken Gallagher game. We'll also be looking at a guide to the Xiao board line, or the Xiao board line, as I should have said, along with a whole bunch of other stuff. So with all of that to get through, let's get on with the show. We're going to start this week's show by talking about the Xiao line of microcontrollers, and it's something we've talked about on the show before a few times actually, partially because they show up in so many projects, especially things like mechanical keyboards because they're so small, but also because I talked specifically about this one, the Seed Studio NRF52840 Sense. That's the one with the Nordic NRF52840 chip on it, so it's a Bluetooth low energy board, but it also has the nice little 6-axis IMU and a microphone on it, and I've talked about the fact that I've fiddled with this a little bit with the idea of making some kind of Bluetooth connected device for controlling musical things. Of course, it is me. I have a one-track mind in that regard. But yes, our product of the week this week is not one, but multiple Seed Xiao development boards. So the usual stuff applies. If you would like to know more about this from a person who really knows what they're talking about, then there's the fantastic article and video from Robin Mitchell, the Electromaker in-house gadget guru. And if you've been watching the product of the week videos, you'll know that they have a high production value and a lot of information, very densely packed. And that information is not waffled like my information is. It is straight from the source, and a source that knows exactly what they're talking about. Or should I say straight from the source by someone who knows exactly what they're talking about. Robin is not the source of Seed Xiaos as much as he claims he might be. Now, before we do actually dive into this, there is the little matter of the fact that we talked about another product of the week just last week, and that was for the Arduino Nano ESP32, and we also talked about the fact that we were going to be giving one of those away. So maybe before we talk about this any further, let's just announce the winner of that contest so people don't have to wait to find out any longer. So we had a whole host of entries to this competition, and thank you to everyone who entered. A quick reminder for those of you who may have been here for a while and forgotten, or who are new to the channel, the way these competitions work is that we ask you what you would make with it, but that doesn't actually have any bearing on who wins. The hashtags are all entered into a very distinct random number generator called Microsoft Excel, and we pick one based on that. And the winner this week is Gregory Knight 2928. I do sort of miss having actual names on YouTube instead of tags, but yes, Gregory Knight, who said, I have a temperature humidity monitor in our hoop house greenhouse project in mind, which is a wonderful idea. And the wonderful thing about using the Nano ESP32 for it is that presumably you'll get the choice. If it's a greenhouse that's close to a house, you could connect to it via Wi-Fi, or you could run it in Bluetooth low energy mode and maybe save a bit of money. Whatever you decide to do, if you document that project and put it on the Project Hub, I would love to read it, and I'll probably feature it on the show as well. But yes, congratulations, Gregory. We'll be in touch with you as to how we can get our prize out to you. Thank you to everyone else who entered competitions. There will be more competitions in the future, including, well, perhaps a competition for a certain line of Xiao boards from Seed Studio, for example. So, as I've already mentioned, if you'd like the full rundown, head to this article, head to the video. You'll find them in the description of this video. It's going to be a far more concise thing than I'm going to give you right now. But I will tell you some of the things that I really like about the Xiao range, because they talk about the advantages here, like consistent shape, uniform profile, all that kind of stuff. But for me, like, it's tiny and it's widely usable across everything. You can use MicroPython with all of them. You can use the Arduino IDE with all of them, and you just plug and play and they go. And it's a USB-C, which is nice. I like that. They're also absolutely tiny, so you can put them in pretty much anything. I'm not even joking. The one that I had in my hand to show you at the start of this section is on my desk amongst other Arduino boards, including tiny ones like Nanos, and I have literally just lost it. Maybe that's a disadvantage, but even so. Now, there's various different varieties of it, and as I've made very clear several times before, the NRF 52840 version, the Sense variant, is the one that I like the most. I do actually have a non-Sense variant one as well. I do use that. This is the one that I have attached to a host computer. I have this one attached to this PC, and the Sense variant is the one that I have that I'm programming, and the idea is that I can just have essentially that and a battery pack in my hand, and just something really simple, a synthesizer playing something on Ableton on the computer, and then I can move my hand left, right, up and down, move the filter and the resonance around. Just simple things like that. It's the kind of stuff that's starting to get built into synthesizers these days, actually. Tangent? I promise this is a very... I promise this is a very short tangent. This is the Roland S1, which is a really wonderful new synthesizer. It is a fully analog synthesizer, well, digitally controlled, but still, it's analog. It's like $200. It's what I would suggest anybody getting if you want to get a synthesizer. You can't hear it because you need to plug it in. And it's got all the things you'd expect. Oscillators, filters, and a bunch of other features. It's got a fantastic sequencer, arpeggiator, blah, blah, blah. What it does have as well is this button here called D-Motion. And you don't get this on many other synthesizers, or at least not that many that I know of, because if you're playing with your incredibly light synthesizer and you're playing all the notes and all this kind of stuff, if you hold down D-Motion, if you move it this way and that way and this way and that way, you can see the values changing on the little 7-segment display screen there. You can change things. You can make that talk to the filters, to the resonance, to the distortion. Do I mean distortion? No, to the delay and reverb. I've already made a lot of incredibly wacky, crazy sounds on this thing that you'd expect you'd need some kind of modular synthesizer or something to make. It's wonderful. Anyway, we're not talking about that, are we? We're talking about the Xiao. Focus, Ian, focus. So the Xiao NRF 52840 is my favorite for the exact reason that it's going to allow this one feature that is in a proprietary feature of this one synth to be something that I can apply to anything. These two super cheap Xiao boards, which, in case I don't need to remind you, both of these Xiao boards together will cost an order of magnitude less than that synthesizer, and I can control anything over Bluetooth Low Energy, and the Sense board on my end can be running at a very, very low amount of power as well. So, of course, I like that a lot. However, the RP2040 variant is also very nice, also just because the RP2040 is wicked. It's got the programmable input and output things in there, which are their own little state machines that run on their own kind of assembly code, something I really want to spend more time delving into because that's so exciting. You can run anything like that. You can just bit bash your own I2C and, get something up the hard way, which I really like the idea of doing, or yeah, I could talk about the RP2040 for a long time, and at some point I do want to do a special in the show where I talk about interesting uses for the PIO from the RP2040, because people have already used it for outputting VGA, for example. And then the SAMD21 version, which was the original Xiao. And the SAMD21 is a pretty chunky little chip, and one of the things I like about it is that it has a 12-bit DAC on it, so it can output audio or any other analog voltages that you might want it for. But yeah, it's got an LED user button, all of that kind of stuff. And so the article goes through a couple of potential uses for it, and of course all of this stuff is in video format as well. If you are a fan of the Xiao line already, then you understand why I am a little bit excited about it. If you are not, and you would like to get your hands on one of these boards, well, this is the beauty of this particular product of the week. It's not just one product, it's four. Because we have the two NRF 52840 boards, one with Sense, one without. We have the RP2040, and we have the SAMD 51 board as well. And we're going to give one of each of them away this time. How many times have I said SAMD 51? It's the SAMD 21. If there is a SAMD 51 and it's a much more powerful chip and I've been making people way too excited, I apologize. That's me. I'm an idiot in an attic. Like I said, that's why we have a fully fledged engineer guru guy. I get to make those mistakes. I apologize. Now, if you've been here before, you know how our competitions work. You need to be a subscriber to this YouTube channel. You also need to leave a little comment saying what you would do if you won one of the Xiao line of boards. And then you need to leave the hashtag Xiao, XIAO Xiao. And we will be going through all of those hashtags over the following week. So on the next show that we put out, it's either going to be next week or the week after. If there isn't a show next week, there's no reason why there wouldn't be, but sometimes that happens because life. And we will be picking 4 winners, 1 to win each board. There's no way to enter for any specific one of the boards, I'm afraid. They are going to be picked at random to be given away at random as well. But either way, as I've said before, any one of the Xiao line of boards is such a fun little thing to play with because they're so easy to work with. They're all Arduino IDE and MicroPython compatible. And all 4 winners, I would really like to know what you come up with. And please do put your projects up on the Electromaker Hub so we can talk about them in the show as well. But yes, that is our Xiao competition, and we will be announcing the winner on the next show. Now, Home Assistant is, with good reason, an incredibly popular choice for DIY smart home enthusiasts, or even people who just want to take a little control over their not DIY smart home and not have to use a million and one different apps to fit things together. There's a reason why it has become so popular, because it manages to combine being very programmable and hackable to those who want to, with being incredibly easy to use for those who don't. It has its own app, it has all of that. And that's about to get even more so with the introduction of their latest piece of hardware, Home Assistant Green. Now, I will be linking this Linux Gizmos article about it because this is where I first discovered it, and it also has all of the relevant information for people like us. There is a fantastic splash page on the Home Assistant page, which is going to be great for if you want to get people interested in it who don't want to know the specs, because it tells you exactly what you need to know. This is a little Linux SBC, but you don't need to know that. It's a box that you plug in. You plug power in, you plug an Ethernet cable in, you download a handy app, and as you can see, well, it's behind my head, you then have access to your Philips Hue, your Google Chromecast, your Sonos, your IKEA Tradfri, Shelly, Plex, Zigbee, Z-Wave, and a bunch of other things, everything that Home Assistant has. It comes already sorted in the box, ready to go. Lovely jubbly, and costs $99, although as it says, this is the recommended selling price. And let's get that out of the way straight away, shall we? If you want to pre-order this, you can get it from Ameridroid for $98.95. You can also get it from the Pi Hut for £71.67. And if you're someone like me who might be interested in buying that from Europe, it is €68.86, which is interestingly cheaper than the price when I looked at it earlier today. Not sure why that is, but that is the way it is, I suppose. As it says, of course, this is a pre-order product. This will be coming out towards the end of this month. I have forgotten the exact launch date. I will tell you that in a moment. Interestingly, the Seed Studio site, which is selling it for $99, mentions that they've already sold 1,000 units. The first batch of 1,000 units has been sold out. The next batch is expected to arrive by the end of October. So October 31st is when the back order will be coming. So I wonder when the originals will be coming. That's something I should probably find out now as well. Well, I'm either being incredibly silly and it's just right in front of me and I can't see it, or it's not obvious exactly when this is actually being released. But anyway, as I mentioned, if the back order from Seed is October 31st, I think you can assume that if you manage to get one of the ones from the Pi Hut, you will receive it sooner than that. Anyhow, on to the fun stuff, at least the fun stuff for people like us. Yes, this is a plug-and-play device, but what's going on inside it? Well, it has an RK3566 quad-core ARM Cortex processor, the A55, which is the same one that was found in the Orange Pi 3B. But as you're seeing, it has a little bit of a different case to it. There's a YouTube video embedded into here, which has a first look at it, which comes with a really nice see-through acrylic case and everything you need to plug in and out of it. And of course, the main difference between this and an Orange Pi 3B is that you're getting out-of-the-box support for Home Assistant. It is designed specifically for that. Could you save a bit of cash by getting a cheap single-board computer and putting Home Assistant on it yourself? Absolutely, but then maybe this isn't aimed at you. For me, I am maybe a little bit susceptible to hype, but I really am massively hyped about this, perhaps even more so than I was about the original Home Assistant Yellow, something we talked about a couple of years ago on the Electromaker show. It's been years since it was released. The Home Assistant Yellow was the original first one that they released, which was designed to work with the Raspberry Pi Compute Module 4, which of course became not the easiest thing in the world to source out, which makes me wonder how well this thing actually did. But yes, this was a completely upgradable board. There was a few differences there, but by the same token, it pretty much is, a Home Assistant box designed specifically for working with Home Assistant, but it required you to either buy a compute module with it or to have your own compute module. This is one box, everything soldered to the board, and off you go, which means you're limited in some ways. It has 4 gigabytes of RAM that is not upgradable, unless you go through the mammoth task of taking it off the board, putting it on the board, and somehow getting it working. People have done that, but don't. It has a 32 gigabyte eMMC flash drive, although I am assuming that you would want to plug another drive into it if you planned to use it for streaming, for example, or as some kind of a basic NAS setup. It has a micro SD slot, but this is only designed for bringing it back to life if it dies, basically, for flashing it. The operating system will be on the eMMC flash drive, and that is what comes with Home Assistant already flashed on it. It has an HDMI port. Again, you're not expected to use this necessarily. The idea is you plug in and you connect to it via your app or your browser. And then it has Ethernet, HDMI as mentioned, 3 status LEDs, 2 USB 2 drives. Again, I'm not sure what the idea for connectivity will be for this, but I'm presuming that most people won't use their Home Assistant box as also their streaming box or their NAS directly. I could be wrong about that. It has a barrel jack connector, and as it says here, it has a couple of things about operating temperature and the size of it as well. It has already, as I said, it already has a product page with a bit of information on it, and if you are interested in finding out more, you can already find out how to get started with it. It says, have you already got yours? You can get started here. And there is a getting started guide for it, which is really nice, actually. I had a little look through it. It's very basic because you don't need to do much to get started with it. There is a little FAQ here as well. I find it quite interesting that one of the questions is, will you drop support for the Raspberry Pi? People really seem to think that they're going to do that, and they absolutely won't. Raspberry Pi and Home Assistant go together, and it's a strange thing. I've seen a few forum posts saying, oh, do you think they're going to drop it? And why? Why would they do that? Anyway, to some people this might seem like a bit of a downgrade, and I don't blame you for that, but again, this isn't necessarily aimed at you. You're not going to be attaching NVMe SSD drives to this, for example. I don't think it even has an M2 key slot. It is a more lightweight version of the Yellow, but it is going to be better for a lot of people. If you have someone who you think would like to get into a semi-smart home but DIY-ish environment but doesn't want to go the full way, I could see this being a really nice gift. And as I mentioned before, plug it in, get the app, and go. That's kind of what you want, but not necessarily with one provider. Home Assistant gives you access to pretty much all of them. It's a really nice idea. Just very briefly, because we talked about a lot of Raspberry Pi in the last couple of weeks, I'm going to just mention that there is a fantastic new blog about Bookworm, which is the new version of Raspberry Pi OS, named after Debian Bookworm. They seem to be running out of Toy Story characters, but apparently this is a character from Toy Story 3, because they're all named after characters from Toy Story. Anyhow, if you are interested in the updates to the Raspberry Pi OS, especially the fact that most of it is behind the scenes, then this is the article for you. It goes through it in incredible amounts of detail. In short, they have switched over from from X to the Wayland window manager, which has a number of benefits, security being one of them, and performance, of course, being another. And the only things I'm going to sort of really quickly mention now is that there's a new library for audio, which is called Pipewire, which I must have just scrolled past. Firefox is now available as well. Yes, here we are. We've changed what we use to graphics to go along with that. We've also changed what we use to control the sound. Pipewire is really fun. If you've ever tried to play with Pulse Audio directly, it can be a bit of a nightmare. I haven't worked with Pipewire yet, but having a quick look at the documentation and some of the examples, it looks like it might be a little bit less difficult to work with if you are someone who, for example, wants to make native DSP applications on Linux. I mean, the Raspberry Pi is the perfect target for that, right? You get some kind of USB audio interface that will work with it, and you can turn it into a guitar pedal, essentially. Many people have. And yes, there's a bunch of other things as well. Network Manager was already rolled out, but that's now as standard, and I've already mentioned Firefox. So if you are interested in finding out about the new version of Raspberry Pi OS, it is available to get right now for Raspberry Pi 4 and 5 if you want it. But if you just like to read about what changes are coming, this fantastic article from Simon Long will be linked in the description of this video. If you are enjoying the Electromaker show, it would do us a massive favor if you could do a couple of quick things. One is to make sure that you are subscribed to the Electromaker YouTube channel. Once you have clicked subscribe, also if you change that little drop-down menu to say all notifications, you're only going to get notifications in YouTube, but you will get notified when we upload our videos to the channel. It's usually 1 per week, occasionally 2. We won't be spamming you unless we're at an event where we'll be interviewing people on the floor, and then you will be getting in-the-moment interviews from people who are making wonderful stuff. Like, for example, back when we were there when the Beagle Play was announced, and we got to chat to Jason from Beaglebone, which was a really nice thing to do. The other thing is clicking like on the video. It might seem like a small thing to do, but it sends a bigger signal to YouTube than it does to us that you actually like it, and it makes it more likely that they will recommend it to other people. That said, if you would prefer a more concrete way to support us, we do have a shop. At www.electromaker.io/shop, you will find a massive range of things from Raspberry Pi to Arduino to things right up at the embedded engineering end of the spectrum, and we can do things in bulk as well if you contact our sales team. So if you'd like to support us directly and financially, that is the way to do it. We don't run any adverts on our videos, and we don't have any in-video sponsorship adverty things like other YouTube channels do. We rely purely on our shop. So yeah, that would be a great way to support us. And with all of that said, let's get on with the rest of the show. It is that time again where we talk about the Electromaker of the Month prize winners. Now, for those of you who are not familiar, Electromaker of the Month is a rolling competition that we have been running for almost 2 years now, where basically all of the projects that are up in our project hub get sent to an independent panel of judges every single month, and they pick their 3 favorite projects. These are based on scope, on documentation, on a number of things, not just complexity. Something that is quite a simple idea, or even just a tutorial as to how to do something else, can and has won in the past. And if you're wanting to enter this contest, you don't have to do anything particularly special. All you need is a free Electromaker account. If you head to electromaker.io and click join us, you will be given a page where you can enter all of this stuff. And as soon as you have an account, you can head to our community section where you can click upload project directly, or if you're on the projects hub and having a good look at what we have here already, you can just click upload your project. And yes, every single one of these gets entered into the Electromaker of the Month contest, and we are going to talk about the winners of the Electromaker of the Month for September 2023. First place this month is Dan with a Programming Propane ESP Now Fire and Shooting Walkway Lights project, which is a fairly unauspicious title for what it actually is. I saw this and I did wonder whether this might win this month, because just this. What are they? Are they walkway lights? Oh yeah, they look like just walkway lights you have on each side of the path. A little bit of strange cabling, but just walkway lights. Yes, they are walkway lights of a sort. Walkway lights that fire via ESP now connected ESP32 devices that trigger relays that fire propane out of tanks through arc generators that make fireballs fly up into the sky. I find this amazing. This is such a fun project, and there's a reason why this won. It's not just that the project itself is amazing. The documentation for this is absolutely unbelievable as well. So Dan has a channel called Gears, Code and Fire, and this covers it really well, actually. This is pretty much this project. It covers the idea of what the channel is, and it's an amazing video. It goes through every aspect of it. It's funny. It talks about the idea for the project. It talks about the issues that he faced. Like, here's one issue that you wouldn't necessarily think of. If you have an arc generator that's making a spark for the fire to go through, if that's anywhere near a microcontroller, it's nuking the microcontroller for the time that the arc generator is on. It's an incredibly high voltage source. That's something you don't necessarily find out until a propane canister stays stuck open, firing fire up into the air, which is what happened, as you will see if you watch this video. You may notice as well that Mellow Labs, who's another Electromaker contributor, features in the start of this video. And that is because a project that we featured a while ago, which is the flamethrower that shoots every time someone subscribes to the channel, or every 10, was made for Dan, for Gears, Code and Fire. If you'd like to find out more about how to fire using ESP32s, first, don't try this at home. Absolutely not. You will burn yourself. Do not. I am telling you now, you should not copy this project. Do not do it. Don't. But if you wanted to... This is a fantastic tutorial taking you through how you could do every aspect of this, and also it uses ESP Now, which is something that I think a lot of us are quite interested in. One master ESP32, which is connected to a little BlackBerry I2C keyboard, which allowed him to have various different trigger points, and then all of the different ESP32s synced so that they would fire off at the right time. And there's everything in here. A custom PCB, because there was one proto board, and as he says somewhere in the article, he wasn't going to make 5 more of those, so he made himself some PCBs. And it's just a wonderful project from start to finish. And in case I just talked for long enough for you to forget, this is shooting fire using ESP32s. It's such a wonderful project and a deserved winner. And the winner of the first prize for Electromaker of the Month wins $150 in cold hard cash, along with some Electromaker swag like pens and stickers and t-shirts and all that kind of fun stuff. So congratulations, Dan. This is an insane project and a wonderful one as well. Second place this month goes to Pradeep Logu 0, who is a community member who's posted a bunch of fantastic projects on our website, and this one is no different. This is a cattle collar using the SenseCap T1000A and the Cubitro. Now, I'm not going to talk about this particularly here, simply because I talked about it at length a few weeks ago on this show, and I will make sure I link this video here, but this is just 2 or 3 episodes ago of the Electromaker show. It's in the title of the show, LoRaWAN Sheep Tracking, because as I've mentioned many times, I'm completely independent to Electromaker of the Month. I don't know who's going to win win until they've already won. The judges are separate to me, so sometimes I talk about stuff that ends up going on to win. And so instead of me going through it all again right now, go and look at that video. But what I will say very briefly is that it uses this fantastic SenseCap tracker, which is a Kickstarter project that Seed Studio put together, one of which I have on order, which is a LoRaWAN development kit with a bunch of sensors and things on board. And it uses this to connect to the Things network via LoRaWAN, and uses the Cubitro web-based IoT system for logging where the cattle go. Because as Pradeep mentions in his article, they have sheep and the sheep go missing. You need to find the sheep. Sometimes sheep go missing and come back and they get ill because they've been eating things they shouldn't. Being able to track exactly where they went might give you an idea of where they could have eaten, what they could have eaten, and where they've been. Very important stuff to pass on to, say, a veterinarian or someone like that. So congratulations, Pradeep. You win our second prize of $100 in cash and, of course, a nice pile of Electromaker swag. Third place this month was won by Mahmoud Schiller, who is a community tutorial maker. And when I say a community tutorial maker, I'm talking about a prolific one. If you look at his account on Electromaker, he has a huge amount of tutorial materials. And in fact, as I said in the previous one, I have featured at least one of his on the show before. I know I've talked about MongoDB and the Raspberry Pi Pico and the fact that you can use it to connect directly to a database, all that kind of stuff. This one specifically is how to measure angles easily with the MPU 60, 50 and the ESP32. And the simple answer is it is very easy indeed, because there is an Arduino library that allows you to do it, but this tutorial goes above and beyond. Our judges loved the fact that this doesn't just go through how you can do it with the Arduino IDE. I mean, it does do that, but it also goes through exactly why the libraries exist and why it's so difficult to do it from scratch, because these things need to be calibrated and they need to take account of various things in order to give accurate readings. And of course, this isn't just how to do the code. This is how you can set up your entire development environment, in this case using Platform IO. And yeah, there's just so many things I love about Mahmoud's tutorials. Not only are they wonderfully written, the videos that come with them are great as well. They go step by step, Mahmoud taking you through each step of it. And if it is something that you're interested in, by the way, he also has a Ko-fi account, just so you know, which is a little bit like Patreon, but for one-off payments, and you can literally buy them a coffee if you like one of their videos. I thought I'd just mention that. Although in this case, Mahmoud, you will be winning the third place this month, which is $50 and a pile of Electromaker swag. As I mentioned, Mahmoud's been putting out a huge amount of community tutorials, and as I mentioned at the start of this section, it's not just the mammoth projects that are going to win Electromaker of the month. I mean, okay, a mammoth fire project won this month, but really well put together documentation, really passionate projects, people who are even maybe blinking an LED for the very first time but want to share it with people are what we are looking for. Our Electromaker community section is so vast in the kinds of projects that people make, and that's what we love, and that's why we started this contest in the first place. So congratulations to all of our winners for this month. Congratulations, you will be winning your Electromaker of the Month certificate as well, which might be the most important thing of all, because of course this certificate is definitely worth more to you than $150 in cash, and we know that. But yes, who's going to win the next Electromaker of the Month? I have absolutely no idea, but it could well be you. Now, moving on to compiling Linux for MCUs. We talked in recent weeks about the ESP32 running Linux, and there is a version specifically that targets the ESP32C3. And Linux itself has run on a variety of tiny controllers of different types, but they always have to have one thing in common. Whether you're watching this on a smart television or an Android device or perhaps an iPhone, don't really know what goes on under the hood there, or a few others, they're all things that are essentially running a form of Linux or another, but they have one thing in common, and that is memory virtualization. Without some kind of managed memory, things can go wrong very quickly. But that's not the only way that you can do this. You can run Linux on smaller and smaller MCUs, and in theory you could run it on something, well, absolutely tiny. And that is exactly what Uros Popovic has done with their 789 kilobyte Linux without MMU on RISC-V project. Now, I will say right at the top, I have not read this entire article yet, and it might seem like a very strange thing for me to recommend it to you, but the reason I haven't read this entirely step-by-step article on how they got this working in QEMU for RISC-V without any kind of MMU, the idea being that you could push this to a RISC-V hardware controller without memory management as well. The only reason I haven't read all of this so far is because there's a primer article which is making a micro Linux distro, which I'm about, I don't know, I guess this far through. I have it set up so that when I see something I like that I want to read, it goes to my Instapaper. My Instapaper goes automatically to my Kindle, and I tend to read this stuff in the middle of the night when children are trying to sleep. And I am also trying to stay awake enough to help the children children sleep. It's just parenting things. Now, so this is absolutely fascinating to me. As I've said many times in the past, I am a noob, I am not an engineer, and yet I'm absolutely fascinated with the ins and outs of working with bare metal, for example, and how Linux works, how a computer boots. There's a fantastic video about that, which I may or may not have had time to talk about on this week's show. If not, it'll be next week's show. Yeah, if you are interested at all in how to build mini Linux distributions for small microcontrollers, this will be very interesting to you. And as you'll find out later in this show as well, Linux on tiny things is somewhat of a theme that will be coming up, because yes, this mystery not microcontroller will be talked about in just a short while. Anyway, what I'm going to link is, as always, the source article I found it, and that is this Hackaday article written by Jenny List. And basically this gives you a quick rundown as to what this is all about. But as I previously said, she said much the same thing as I did, really, which is that Linux requires virtual memory unless you are Uros Popovic, who has worked out how to do it without any memory management whatsoever. And it's just really interesting. It's just a really interesting idea. And I look forward to reading through it and seeing how much of it I can hold in my head at one time. Those of you who are familiar with recompiling the Linux kernel and creating your own custom kernels might find this especially interesting. Now, PCB fabrication houses are a fact of life for all makers, especially makers with an online presence, partially because they sponsor people's videos by giving people access to free PCBs. And there are various opinions about this, and I am not going to give mine. What I will say is I am very glad that there are some people out there who are getting the opportunity to get their hands on PCBs of their own creations, with the implicit idea being that they just advertise for those people. I think that is generally a good thing. However, with all of these out-of-house PCB fabrication centers, designed to make it as easy as possible for people to get their own PCBs made, there is always one question, and that is of quality. Which is why LCamTough's comparison of them is such an interesting thing to see. Now, I will be linking to this Hackaday article written by Richard Bagley on the Hackaday website, because that's how I discovered it. However, you can find in the very first sentence a link to the Substack page, which is LCamTough's thing, talking about it as well. And essentially, it's just a really interesting idea. You give the companies all exactly the same board to get fabricated and sent back to you, with a couple of gotchas. Some things which are not necessarily easy to do right, or some things that should be done right. And for example, there's one hole which was a little bit offset and weird, if I remember correctly. And the idea is he sent them away and saw what came back. And it was really interesting. I'm not going to go through all the results now. It's a relatively short, the original article is relatively short. The Hackaday article is even shorter than that. But in short, as you may expect, there are some small variants in quality. The one spoiler I will give is that, as a general rule, the level of quality was high across the board. No pun intended. But there was one company, and I can't remember which, I'm not trying to bury the lead here, that got back to them about one obscurely placed hole on the PCB as to what they should do with it. The rest of them just made assumptions. And it's just really simple, because really interesting, because these are names that you hear all the time. DigiKey Red's PCB fabrication service, but of course, if you're watching a lot of YouTube things, people like JLC PCB and PCB Way are names that you will hear all the time, because a lot of creators take advantage of the fact that they sponsor creators in order to, I'm sure some people make money from that. I haven't actually seen the kind of rates, and I'm not interested in finding out that kind of stuff. But again, like I said at the start of this section, I'm sure there are a few creators out there who only have their own PCBs in their hand because they said, hey, I'm going to make this project and I will be showing it online on various websites and in project hubs like ours at Electromaker. Can you sponsor me my PCBs? And these companies seem to say yes, almost across the board, which I think is fundamentally a good thing. And I find these kind of comparisons absolutely fascinating. So yeah, if you would like to find out more, head to the link in the description. You can find this Hackaday article, which gives a nice roundup of it. And of course, the original Substack article from LCamTough here. I interestingly only just found out about Eile as well, or Eisler, who are here in Germany. And so if I want to get a PCB made, I might shop local, who knows? We are going to close out this week's show by talking about Milk5 again. Now, we talked about them a few weeks ago, and they put out RISC-V computers, everything from fully fledged development platforms to the Milk5 Mars, which is Raspberry Pi form factored, down to this, which is a Raspberry Pi Pico form factored mini Linux computer. One of the YouTube creators I watch, and I have forgotten who, I apologize, has coined the term ESBC because this is an embedded single board computer. This is a wondrous little device, and I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it in the intro right now. It has a baseboard that it comes with as well. This is a Raspberry Pi-alike that works with Ethernet and USB, pogo pins for attaching to the Ethernet, and USB if you don't want to put all of the pins into it. You can just tape it down, as you're going to see in this video, or of course you can put all the pins on it. And also a camera module. Again, we'll be going into this. I bought this because I was just so excited about it, and it's incredibly cheap, by the way. I can't remember exactly how much I paid for mine, but they're listed for anywhere between $5 and $9 for this board, which is absolutely absurd. And there's a few things about it that I'm so looking forward to getting started with. However, I can wait because someone has done it for me in one of the most wonderful videos that's just a deep dive on all of this. Apalrd has done a really thorough unboxing and getting started guide with the RISC-V Duo, and it goes way beyond that. Everything from talking about what is RISC-V architecture, why it is exciting, and then of course unboxing the thing itself. And as I mentioned, you get various variants of it. The camera was like €3 or €4, I believe. I think I paid about €6 for the board. I can't remember how much I paid for the baseboard. Really not very much. Tiny amounts of money. The whole thing together is it's wildly cheap. But this video doesn't just go through the getting started. He really goes through the deep and meaningful parts of it to people who are used to working with computers, an assembly language, for example. So there is the initial first boot and get up. He shows how you can get the drivers working for Windows. Apparently it's a lot simpler in Linux, as it says in the annotation just here. And also how you can write code for it. So there's some code on the board already in Bash, and then he shows how you can write C code for it, and then how you can get that compiled on your computer, and you send it over by a file system. Which brings me on to the first thing about this that I absolutely love. Everything on this is a file. Just like in Linux, everything is a file. If you want to turn the onboard LED on or off, you write to the LED's file in the file system, and that's how it works. Which is such a simple concept. It's such a really nice idea. And I'm really looking forward to kind of fiddling with it. But this isn't just a Linux device that does everything in software. This has hardware SPI, it has a hardware ADC, it has, a bunch of different things. It can do SDIO, for example. So that would, for example, give it, I think, Wi-Fi and the potential even to output images if you made a VGA adapter. I might be wrong about that part. This video shows you exactly how he got started with it, but then goes deep by showing you the difference between RISC-V assembly and the same program assembled for ARM, for MIPI, and for x86, and a few other things, PowerPC as well. So this section in the middle is incredible. It takes you through the exact differences between assembly because this guy has a degree in computer engineering. And so to hear someone go through with such a depth of knowledge is kind of mind-blowing to me as someone who has not got a degree in anything other than making weird sounds with synthesizers. It makes me incredibly happy indeed to have someone explain it to me in a way that I just natively understand. It is really nice. I'm not going to go much further on this other than he tests out the Ethernet and he tests out the camera as well. This is how good the camera looks, which is astonishing. This is a €2 camera or something like that, €2 or €3, can't remember. It's very rare that I'll say, just go and watch a video. Because usually you like to hear me give an explanation of it. But I think this is a video that deserves the 111,000 views that it has got. It is wonderfully put together. And even if you're not interested in getting a hold of one of these wonderful little Milk-V boards yourself, it is very interesting. And as the video says in its title, RISC-V is going to be the future of computing. There's a reason why everyone has taken this on. There's a reason why I am almost certain that in the coming years we'll be seeing RISC-V come neck and neck to every other kind of architecture that is out there, it's a really exciting time to be a part of it. I will be reporting back when I finally get the chance to start messing around with this thing myself, and this video will be an absolute resource for me when I do. As always, a link to this will be in the description of the video, and go and subscribe to Apalrd's Adventures channel. If you're interested in finding out more about the Milk-V lineup in general, I gave a very high-level overview back in June 21st this year. I'll try and remember to leave a link to that show in the description as well, in case you want to go back and hear what I said about all of these different Milk-V boards. As I mentioned, they have the full version, which is kind of a full ITX motherboard, which is going to have a RISC-V chip on it, and they also have the Milk-V Mars and the Raspberry Pi the Milk-V Mars, the Raspberry Pi form factor one, and of course the Milk-V Duo that we've just been talking about. That has been our show for this week. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly enjoyed putting this one together. There's just such a plethora of interesting things happening all at once right now. Yes, there is more Raspberry Pi 5 stuff to come, perhaps unsurprisingly. Also some really interesting stuff about Blues Wireless coming up in the coming weeks. I'm working away behind the scenes on a couple of projects, and hopefully I'll have a Pi 5 in my hands finally very, very soon. We'll just have to wait and see about that. But needless to say, I am very excited to play with one. I have been binging on Pi material since it came out, and I made honest attempt this week to not put too much Pi in the show. We talked about Wayland, of course, but yeah, that will be changing again rather soon, I imagine. But I hope you have been enjoying it. If there is anything you would like to hear more about, I'm always reading the comments of each show. I always love reading what people have to say about everything. I love how engaged people are with the stuff that we talk about on this show. It really means a lot to me that people are listening to me waffle on, much like I'm doing now, about microcontrollers. So, I will see you next week. I hope you have a fun, safe, and creative one. Take care.